I'm so tired, I can't walk anymore. Those were the words she whispered to herself on the marble floor, barefoot, knees shaking, while the man behind her calmly adjusted his cufflinks like nothing in the world was wrong. If you're hearing this right now, don't leave. Because what happened to her after this moment was never meant to be known, and once you hear it, you'll never forget it. Her name was Ara. That wasn't the name on her passport anymore, but it was the name her mother used when she braided her hair at night and told her the world was kinder than it looked. Ara believed that once. She believed in clean love, quiet dreams, and the idea that marriage was safety. That belief died the night she married him. He was known in Seoul by many names: businessman, investor, chairman. But in the darker corners of the city, where neon lights flicker and no one asks questions, he was something else entirely. A man connected to blood, silence, and fear. A man who never had to raise his voice to be obeyed. People called him Kangjun, not to his face, never to his face. Ara met him through her aunt. It was supposed to be an honor, a miracle match, a powerful man choosing a simple, untouched girl with no past and no demands. You'll be protected forever, they told her. He's rich, he's respected, you'll never struggle. They didn't tell her that protection can feel exactly like a cage. On the wedding night, the room smelled of expensive wood and unfamiliar perfume. Ara sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded, heart racing so loudly she was sure he could hear it. She had never been with a man. She was shaking, not from excitement, but from fear she didn't yet understand. Kang Jun watched her the way someone watches a new possession. Calm, measuring, silent. You don't have to speak unless I ask, he said softly. That was the first rule. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. House was enormous, cold, always quiet. Too quiet. Ara learned to walk silently, to breathe quietly, to exist in a way that wouldn't disturb him. Every morning she woke up exhausted, even when she had slept. Every night she felt smaller. He was never satisfied, not with the meals, not with her obedience, not with her body, not with her silence. No matter how hard she tried, there was always something missing, something she couldn't give. And when he was displeased, the punishment was never loud. Never obvious, just looks, just words, just the removal of warmth, a locked door, a canceled privilege, a reminder of who owned her life. If this story is already making your chest feel tight, stay with me. And if you haven't already, quietly like the video and subscribe. Not for me. For stories like Ara's that disappear when no one listens. She wasn't allowed to leave the house alone. Her phone was monitored. Her calls were limited. For your safety, he said. Seoul was dangerous. People wanted to hurt him, which meant they could hurt her. Fear became the excuse for everything. At night, when Kang Jun slept, Ara stared at the ceiling and counted her breaths. Sometimes she imagined running. But where would she go? Her family was proud of her marriage. Her aunt reminded her constantly how lucky she was. The world outside had already decided she belonged to him. The first time she said, "I'm tired," he laughed, not cruelly, casually. "You don't work," he said. "What could you be tired from?" She didn't answer. She learned that silence was safer than honesty, but her body didn't lie. Bruises bloomed where no one could see. Her legs weakened. Her appetite vanished. She started to forget who she used to be. Her reflection felt like a stranger. Thin, hollow, eyes always looking down. One evening, she overheard a conversation. Men in dark suits, low voices, words like shipment, warning, accident. She realized then that her husband wasn't just powerful. He was dangerous, and danger doesn't love, it consumes. That night he came home angry. His movements sharp, his presence heavy. Ara felt it before he spoke, she always did. When it was over, she slid down onto the floor, unable to stand. Her legs refused to obey her. That's when she whispered it. "I'm so tired, I can't walk." He looked at her for a long moment, then he crouched close enough that she could smell his breath. "You don't get tired," he said quietly. "You endure." Something broke inside her then, not loudly, not dramatically, just a soft internal collapse, the kind that never fully heals. Time lost meaning after that. Days blended together. Pain became normal. Fear became routine. Love felt like a rumor from another life. She stopped hoping for rescue. She stopped praying for escape. All she wanted was rest. Just one full breath without fear. The only place her story existed was in fragments. A housekeeper who avoided her eyes. A driver who drove a little slower when she looked sick. And one anonymous channel that documented whispers and disappearances. Someone once told her in passing that if the truth ever came out, it would be through something called Soul Secret Chapters. Ara didn't know what that meant. She only knew that secrets were the only thing keeping her alive. Near the end, when her body finally started to fail, Kang Jun stood by the window, watching the city glow beneath him. "You should be grateful," he said. "Most women would kill for this life." Ara didn't answer. She couldn't, her voice was gone. What happened next depends on who you believe. Some say she disappeared. Some say she was sent away quietly. Some say she's still alive somewhere, learning how to walk again. The truth is buried deep where powerful men bury inconvenient things. But here's the question that won't let you sleep. If a life looks perfect from the outside but is unbearable inside, does anyone have the right to call it success? And if you had known Ara, if she had whispered her truth to you, would you have stayed silent too? If this story disturbed you, comment what you think should have happened. Share this with someone who believes power always means protection, because sometimes the most dangerous prisons have no bars at all. The night she finally understood there would be no rescue, rain pressed against the windows like thousands of quiet fingers begging to be let in. Ara lay on the bed, staring at the shadow of the ceiling light, listening to the house breathe. Even the walls felt complicit. Everything here existed to keep her contained. Her legs burned constantly now. Walking felt like dragging someone else's body behind her. Doctors came, always chosen by him, always careful with their words. Stress, exhaustion, adjustment. No one said the truth out loud. No one ever did. Truth had no place in a house built on power. Sometimes Kang Jun watched her when he thought she was asleep. She felt his gaze like a weight on her chest. He didn't touch her in those moments. He just observed, as if checking whether something he owned was still functioning. When she opened her eyes once, by accident, their eyes met. He didn't look away. "You're changing," he said. She wanted to scream that she had been changing since the day she met him, since the moment her future was decided in a quiet room without her voice. But she said nothing. Silence had become her native language. The fear was no longer sharp. It was dull, constant, worse than panic. Panic ends, this didn't. One afternoon, while being helped down the hallway, she caught her reflection in a mirror she hadn't seen in months. She barely recognized herself. Her face looked older, but also younger, like something unfinished. That was the moment she realized the most terrifying thing of all. If she stayed, she would disappear completely. Not physically, something worse. No one would remember who she had been. That night, she made a decision so quiet it almost didn't exist. She didn't plan an escape. She didn't pack. She didn't dream of freedom. She simply decided she would no longer try to survive for him. Whatever happened next would be on her terms, even if the cost was everything. When Kang Jun returned late, smelling of smoke and rain, he sensed it immediately. He always did. Power recognizes resistance, even when it's silent. "You look different," he said again. "I'm tired," she replied. Her voice surprised even her. It was weak, but it was there. His expression hardened. "You've said that before." "I know." For the first time, he raised his voice, just slightly, enough to remind her who he was, enough to remind himself too. "You don't get to stop." She met his eyes, really met them. There was fear there, yes, but beneath it was something new. A quiet defiance born from having nothing left to lose. Her body gave out soon after. One morning she couldn't stand at all. The world tilted, then went dark. When she woke up, she wasn't in the house. White walls, machines, a hospital room. Kang Jun stood near the door, speaking softly to someone on the phone. His tone was controlled, calculating. "She won't be a problem," he said. "Handle it." That was when Ara understood. She wasn't a wife anymore. She was a liability. What happened after was never officially recorded. No police report. No announcement. No funeral. Just an empty room back at the house, cleaned and reassigned. Her name stopped being used. Even her aunt avoided speaking it. But stories don't vanish so easily. They leak. They whisper. They find cracks. Some say a nurse helped her. Some say money changed hands. Some say guilt finally outweighed fear for someone. And some nights, if you listen closely to the darker corners of the internet, you'll hear a voice telling a story that sounds too specific to be fiction. A story about a girl who couldn't walk, who was owned by a man who had everything except mercy. If Ara survived, she carries scars no one can see. If she didn't, then this story is all that's left of her. And that should make you uncomfortable, because it means someone like Kang Jun still walks free, still powerful, still respected. So now the choice is yours. Do you see this as entertainment or as a warning? Do you believe silence keeps you safe, or does it make you complicit? Comment what you would have done if you were standing close enough to hear her whisper, "I'm so tired." Share this story if you think some truths deserve to live, even when powerful people want them buried. There was a period after her disappearance when even the rumors went quiet. That was the most frightening part. Seoul never truly sleeps, but it knows how to forget on command. New scandals replaced old ones. New faces took the place of vanished ones. Kang Jun continued to attend events, to smile for cameras, to donate to charities with his name engraved in silver. From the outside, nothing had changed. And that was the point. But silence doesn't erase pain. It only hides it until it learns how to speak. Months later, a woman was seen in a rehabilitation clinic outside the city. She used a different name. Her hair was cut short, uneven, like it had been done without a mirror. She walked slowly, as if each step required negotiation with her own body. The staff were told not to ask questions. They didn't, they never do. At night, she woke up gasping, hands clenched, heart racing like it was still trapped in that house. Sometimes she heard his voice in the hum of the lights. Sometimes she felt his presence in the silence between breaths. Trauma doesn't end when danger does. It lingers. It waits. She learned how to walk again the way a child does, one painful step at a time. Falling, getting up, falling again, each movement hurt, but pain was familiar. Pain didn't scare her anymore. What scared her was the idea of being seen. There were days she wanted to disappear completely, to become no one, to live quietly enough that the past couldn't find her. But there were other days, darker days, when anger burned hotter than fear, when she remembered the floor beneath her knees, the words, "You endure," and something inside her whispered, "No, not anymore." She never contacted her family, too dangerous, too complicated. Love had failed her once already, she wasn't ready to test it again. The internet became her window to the world. She watched people argue about stories like hers, comment sections full of doubt. Why didn't she leave? She must have wanted the money. This sounds fake. Each sentence felt like another hand pushing her back down. Victims are always guilty in the court of comfort. One night she found it, a video, no names. No proof, just a story told in a low, steady voice. Details only someone inside could know. The house, the silence, the exhaustion, it was her life stripped of decoration, documented quietly, buried among other dark truths. That was the moment she realized her pain hadn't been completely erased. Someone had seen it. Someone had remembered. She cried then, not loudly, not dramatically, just tears sliding down her face as she pressed her hand to her mouth to stay quiet. Old habits die hard. She never reached out, never corrected details, never claimed ownership of the story. Survival had taught her caution. But knowing the truth existed somewhere outside her own body gave her something she hadn't felt in a long time. Wait, existence. Kang Joon never looked for her publicly. Men like him don't chase what they believe is broken beyond use. But power has a long memory, and fear never fully leaves. Years passed. Sometimes, when the city lights reflected off wet pavement, she felt the pull of the past tug at her chest. Sometimes she wondered if justice would ever come, and sometimes she wondered if justice even mattered anymore. What mattered was this. She could walk now, slowly, carefully, but on her own. And you listening to this are now part of her story whether you want to be or not. Because once a truth is heard, it demands something in return. Silence is a choice, so is attention. If you've made it this far, ask yourself why. Ask yourself what it means to witness suffering without acting. And ask yourself how many Aras exist right now, whispering the same words, hoping someone hears them before it's too late. This isn't just a story, it's a mirror. And what you do after seeing yourself in it is the part no one can write for you. There was one final truth Ara never said out loud, even to herself. Freedom didn't feel like happiness. It felt like emptiness. Like standing in a room after a fire, everything burned, everything gone, and realizing survival is not the same as living. She took small jobs that required no history. Cleaning, sorting, quiet work where no one asked questions and no one cared who she used to be. At night, she sat by the window of a rented room and watched strangers live their lives below. Couples arguing, friends laughing, people walking without thinking about it. Every step they took so easily felt unreal to her. Sometimes she caught herself imagining Kang Joon hearing her name again, imagining his jaw tightening, imagining fear just once touching his perfect life. But imagination was all she allowed herself. Revenge keeps you tied to the same chain, just on the other end. Her body healed faster than her mind. Loud voices made her flinch. Men in suits made her chest tight. Even kindness felt suspicious. When someone offered help, her first instinct was to refuse. Dependence had almost killed her once. One evening, a woman at work complained about being tired. "I'm exhausted," she said, laughing. "I can't even walk straight anymore." Ara froze. The words hit her harder than any hand ever had. For a moment, the room disappeared. She was back on the marble floor, back in that house. Back in that moment when her life stopped belonging to her. She excused herself and went outside. The air was cold, real. She leaned against a wall and breathed until the shaking stopped. That was when she understood something she hadn't before. Her story didn't end with escape. It continued every day she chose not to disappear, every day she chose to exist, even quietly. There would be no public justice, no apology, no courtroom scene where truth triumphed. Real life doesn't work that way. Monsters don't always fall. Sometimes they grow older and richer and more respected. And sometimes the only victory is refusing to die the way they planned. Ara never told her full story. Not to a journalist, not to a friend, not to you. Pieces of it live scattered, disguised as fiction, hidden in whispers and videos and comments that people scroll past without thinking. That's how most truths survive. Not loudly, but persistently. If you're listening to this and thinking, "This could never happen to me," remember that she thought the same thing. If you're thinking someone would have saved her, remember how many people saw and stayed silent. And if you're thinking this is just a story, ask yourself why it feels so heavy in your chest. Somewhere right now, someone is whispering the same words Ara did. I'm so tired, I can't walk. And the most terrifying question isn't what will happen to them, it's who will pretend they didn't hear it. Now it's on you. Will you forget this the moment the video ends, or will you carry it with you? Will you stay silent, or will you speak, share, comment, even when it's uncomfortable? Because attention is sometimes the only light that reaches places built on darkness. This story doesn't ask for sympathy. It asks for awareness. And once you have that, you don't get to give it back. She walks past mirrors now without stopping. Not because she's healed, but because she's learned that survival doesn't need proof. Her steps are still careful, still measured, but they are hers. No one owns them anymore. And somewhere far away, a powerful man sleeps peacefully, convinced that silence means victory. It doesn't, because stories don't need permission to exist. Once heard, they stay alive in the minds of those who listened. In questions they can't unask. In discomfort they can't shake. In choices they're forced to confront. If even one person hears this and decides not to look away next time, then she didn't endure for nothing. This is where the story stops being hers and becomes yours. Before you leave, you pause for a second. If this story stayed with you, if it made you uncomfortable, angry, quiet, or heavy inside, don't scroll away like nothing happened. That reaction means something and you recognize the truth in it. Subscribe not as a habit, but as a choice, because the next story won't be easier. It will be darker, closer, and even harder to ignore. These stories are told for the ones who were silenced and for the ones who still might be saved. Comment below honestly, not what sounds smart, not what sounds kind. Answer this instead. If Ara had told you the truth before it was too late, would you have believed her? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, shared, and remembered, send this to someone who needs to hear it, even if it makes them uncomfortable. Especially if it makes them uncomfortable. The next story is already waiting. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear that one either.